Hey everybody, this is Russ from Retro Game Core. So I recently reviewed this device here, the Anbernic RG353PS. And all told, I think it was a pretty positive review. But that review was pretty darn early, and so because of that, at the time I didn't know the final price or when it was going to be released. Well, I just found out it's going to be releasing later on today, and the initial starting price is going to be $87. Now, Anbernic does this thing where they discount it for the first 48 hours, and so after that it will go up to $95. Either way, no matter when you try to buy this device, it looks like it's going to come in at under $100 plus shipping. Now additionally, Anbernic sent over one of their other color options for this device, as well as a couple of accessories. And so in this video here, we're going to do a quick comparison against the color options and accessories in case you are interested in picking one of these up. So let's go ahead and start with the color comparison between the two. Now obviously in my review I had this gray model right here, and I actually really like this color scheme. It's kind of a weird cross between a Super Nintendo controller and the original Game Boy DMG. And so I do like these accents, you know, the contrast of the gray against the tan, and then also that really nostalgic screen bezel and these red buttons as well. So yes, overall I'm a big fan of this gray color scheme right here. Now this other one is what they're calling the white transparent model. And there are a few key differences here between the two. Number one, obviously we have a transparent shell, but then also we have these rainbow colored face buttons. And these have the same matte texture as the red buttons here, and they feel really good. And I do like how they give a bright 90s kind of vibe as well. Now as far as everything else, it looks to be the exact same components, the gray buttons as well as even the accents here on the back. In fact, even the text printed on the back seems to be the same color too. Now speaking of the back, this is one of the things I don't like about transparent Anbernic devices. Number one, I think the battery they use is just kind of gaudy looking, but then also you can clearly see the glue or the double-sided tape that they use to attach the battery to the device. And so that is one thing that is kind of weird about these Anbernic devices in case you do plan on picking up a transparent model. Another element I thought was kind of unique is that you can clearly see the Wi-Fi antenna right here on the bottom left. And I don't know, it's kind of neat that you can see the component like this, but all the same, it does stand out quite a bit. Now in terms of the plastic texture, it's about the same as it is on the tanned one. It has a little bit of grit to it, but overall I would say it's a pretty smooth feeling handheld. Either way, I do like the feel of this plastic overall. In the end, I think there's a pretty wide disparity between these two colors. The gray one to me is very reminiscent of like a late 80s product, while this one here with the transparent plastic as well as those bright buttons feels like it's straight out of the early 90s. It's almost like this one here is the Mad Catz version of the other one. Regardless, I think that either of these color schemes can scratch a specific nostalgic itch. Now, I'm going to boot up the device here because I want to get a look at the bezels overall. And as you can see here, we have a black bezel, and it's a little bit chunky, but not too bad. And here's a quick comparison between the bezels of these two. And again, I think that each of these serve a different purpose. The black one on top definitely stands out from the rest of the controller, but it also makes the colors on the screen really pop. Meanwhile, on the bottom, that gray color just kind of mixes in with the rest of the controller and is a little bit more subdued. Now another thing I want to check is the brightness of the LED, because that can be an issue with transparent devices. And here with the studio lights off, you can see that yes, on the gray model, you can definitely see that LED light, but it's not too bad. Meanwhile, on the transparent model, it has a bit of a more bloom effect to it overall, but all the same, I wouldn't say this is like distractingly bright. I think it's okay. And looking at the back here, we're not getting a lot of light bleed either, which is a good thing. So I think in the end here, the brightness of the LED lights here don't really bother me in the dark. Now there is a third color option available for this device, and it is a transparent purple. And obviously I don't have that one on me, but I do have a recent Anbernic release in the RG35XX. And this one had a transparent purple shell that looks very similar to the renders of the other one. So I don't think this will be an exact comparison, but at least it'll give you an idea of what the purple shell is going to look like. And as you can see here, it looks a little bit darker than the transparent white one, and honestly the purple color here is very subdued. It reminds me a bit of the transparent purple model on the Game Boy Color. Either way, if you are interested in getting the purple version of this device, I hope this gives you at least a better idea of what it's going to look like. However, one thing that you can see from the renders is that the white PCB, which is at the top half of the device, really stands out from the rest. And so it almost gives the device a two-toned color, and I'm not really sure if I like that. Anyway, I hope that gives you an idea about the colors. Let's move on to the accessories next. And one of the things they included in their package is this hardshell case right here. And you can find this in the accessories section of their website, and it looks to cost about $18 altogether. Honestly, I think that's a pretty steep price for this hardshell case right here, because often you can find similar cases like this on Amazon for like $10 or $12. Either way, I appreciate the subdued branding that we have right here, but one of the things I don't like about it is this wrist strap. I would have preferred that this be a detachable item here. Either way, inside the case you can see it has a soft felt lining, and there's a strap on the bottom to hold the device in place, as well as room for accessories up top. Now sliding the device into the strap is pretty easy, but it may get stuck on the joysticks. And I did find that this was actually a pretty snug fit. In fact, adding the case to it doesn't increase the bulk of the device that much at all. And so in that regard, I like the fact that it's very form-fitting and doesn't add bulk. However, after I'm done making this video, I'm probably going to go in and take some scissors and cut this strap off. I just personally don't see myself using it in that way. And to be honest, I haven't really been using this strap inside either. I found that if you just add the device like this, it stays very snug inside here. It's a really well form-fitting case. And so I might actually go in here and cut out this strap as well. Because honestly, I don't think the device is actually going to need it. There's a little bit of wiggle room if you move the device around inside the shell, but when you have it zipped up, you don't even notice that at all. And honestly, I don't think this strap is going to prevent that wiggle anyway. And so in the end, yes, this is a pretty good case, one of the best I've seen from Anbernic, but $18 is a little bit steep. Now, if you've ever bought a device from Anbernic, you may see different storage options available when you make your purchase. And that's because for most of these, the default version will not come with an extra SD card, but you can buy one if you'd like. And it turns out that with this white model here, they did send one of those SD cards, so let's take a quick look at that too. Now, first of all, I do want to mention the ethics of this. After all, they're basically putting pirated games onto a card and then selling it, and for that reason, I don't really recommend buying these cards in the first place. I've always found that it's better to build your own ROM library to have exactly the games that you want to play. And even though you might be attracted to the idea of getting a preloaded device like this, it's never really as good as you might think. For example, if we browse through the games list, you can see that some of these numbers just don't add up. For example, if we look at the Super Nintendo list right here, you can see it comes with 1,100 games. Now, there are only something like 700 games released in the US for the Super Nintendo, and I think if you combine that with the European exclusives, you're looking at something like 750. And so the remaining releases here are going to be things like ROM hacks or maybe out-of-region ROMs. And so personally, I don't really like the idea of having 1,100 Super Nintendo games on my device, because that can make it really hard to find the actual games you want to play. Now, fortunately, the stock firmware does come with a favorite system, so you can favorite the games you like and then just go through the menus that way. But all the same, I think nothing really beats having your own curated ROM list instead. And of course, I have guides on setting up custom firmware here on this channel and on my website. Either way, I'm just going to kind of browse through the systems right here so you can see the number of games that you can have available on this device if you do buy that 128 gig card. And like I mentioned, it's going to be really hit or miss. Sometimes you'll find a lot of games on one system, and other times, depending on the system, you may only find a few options there. Either way, all told, we're looking at about 4,500 games altogether. Just bear in mind that a good chunk of these are going to be unreleased ROM hacks and things like that. For example, here you can see there are 686 NES games, even though there were only about 350 or so released in North America. And if you scroll through the games list, you'll see some very random titles. For example, there are 4 different Angry Birds games right here, even though Angry Birds came out like 20 years after the NES. And if you boot one of these up, you'll see that yes, this is a totally hacked version of some other NES game right here. And this is a very common thing to see in these preloaded cards, and it's just one of the many reasons why I don't recommend using them. But who knows, maybe you really enjoy Mickey Mania 7 here on the NES. Now, in my review of this device, I did mention that I recommend using a custom firmware like ArcOS because it will give you a better navigation experience as well as improved gameplay. But I should also mention that the stock firmware that's available here is not half bad. For example, when you play a Game Boy game, it's going to give you a DMG colorization that looks very nice, and the image is scaling to the correct aspect ratio as well. And the performance is also not bad either. For example, we can play F-Zero X here on the Nintendo 64 at a full speed. But if you really want to get the most out of your device, I would definitely recommend checking out custom firmware instead. Anyway, that's really about it for this video. I wanted to keep it short and sweet, talk a little bit about the price point as well as your color options and accessories too. And as far as recommendations go, yes, I do recommend the RG353PS if it does meet your specific needs. And I would recommend checking out the review to get a little bit more info in that regard. But as far as the color options and accessories, that's totally going to be up to you. Either way, if you are interested in picking this up, I will leave an affiliate link as well as a non-affiliate link in the video description below. And let me know what you think in the comments below, which color looks best to you. As always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and we will see you next time. Happy gaming.